Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. My name's Amber and I upload beauty and true crime content. If they're the type of videos that you like to watch, then why not hit that subscribe button and come along and join our little family. And now we can get into today's True Crime Tuesday. And today we're going to be taking a break from these sort of serial killer cases and focusing on one case. But before we do that, I just want to give you the usual warning that I do not mean any disrespect to anyone mentioned in this video. This video does contain adult content and adult references, and if that makes you feel uncomfortable anyway, that is fine, but then please click off this video, and there are plenty of others on my channel that would probably be more suited to you. The case we're going to be doing today is the murder of Muriel Drinkwater. The murder of Muriel Drinkwater is an unsolved 1946 child murder case from Wales. The case actually became known as the Little Red Riding Hood murder, and it's one of the oldest active cold cases in the United Kingdom. So Muriel Joan Drinkwater was born on the 19th of July in 1933 in Wales. She was the youngest of 4 daughters who were born to John Percival and Margaret Drinkwater. Muriel was known locally as the Little Nightingale because she had a beautiful singing voice. She was also described as a brilliant scholar, and she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. On the 27th of June in 1946, Muriel actually took the school bus home from Gowerton Grammar School. She was last seen at 2:30 singing as she headed for the 1-mile walk to her family's home, which was the Tile Dew farm. The path she walked on to get home actually curved in and out of the woods, and her mother actually seen her go into the woods, but she didn't come back out again. Muriel never made it home. The last person who reported seeing her was Hubert Hoyles, and he was 13-year-old at the time. He said that he'd passed her on the path from her family farm where he had gone to buy eggs. Every man in the village took part in an all-night search, but at 4:30 the following day, Muriel's body was found. She was still fully dressed in her school clothes, and she was found in an isolated spot near a path in the wood just a quarter of a mile from her home. An autopsy later determined that Muriel had actually been bludgeoned in the head along with being raped, and she'd been shot twice in the chest. 2 days later, the police actually found the murder weapon, and it was in the undergrowth near Muriel's body. The gun was a Colt 45 American Army automatic issue pistol, which was issued for World War I, and it was probably also used in World War II, which significantly had the original wooden stocks next to the grip modernised with perspex. Glamorgan police, who were assisted by the 169th Bomb Disposal Unit, used a metal detector to search for a second weapon suspected to have been used, but they never located it. Photos of the gun were handed out by the police as they appealed for information for good citizens to come forward and inform them of anything that could help them with the case. In the days and weeks that followed Muriel's murder, police officers visited every farmhouse and cottage within 150 square miles, along with interviewing over 20,000 men in the Swansea, Aberdare and Carmarthenshire area. Yet despite their extensive inquiries, not to mention the discovery of the gun used in Muriel's shooting, the culprit managed to evade justice. There was a description of the man which was distributed, and this was that he was around 30 years old, he had thick fluffy hair, and he was wearing brown corduroy trousers and a light brown sports jacket. In August, police appealed in the United States. During the war, the Western Mail reported many American servicemen were stationed at the Pelengea, and it was thought one of them might have sold the gun there. The murder, however, was not headline news, and it did not make the headline of the day in the Western Mail newspaper. There were just 3 paragraphs printed about it on the 29th of June in 1946. On the 2nd of July 1946, 3,000 people went to Muriel's funeral at St David's Church in Palangea, with mourners, many of them who were women and young children who had travelled from miles around. They gathered in the churchyard. As Muriel's coffin was carried into the church, followed by her family and her classmates, the choir sang "There's a Home for Little Children." The chief constable sent a wreath, and many women carried posies and flowers which were later placed on the grave. In 2003, detectives actually decided to reopen the case in a hope of finding DNA evidence, but they were not too successful as too many people had handled the gun, and it was believed that the victim's clothes had been lost for decades. A key person in Muriel's murder was Hubert Hoyles, who was the last person to have seen her alive. Given that Hoyles was the last person to have seen her alive, he quickly became a suspect, but but in 2008, Detective Chief Inspector Paul Bethel located Muriel's blue coat, underwear and a school uniform that had been in police storage. He was thrilled to discover that on the back of the coat a no longer visibly dried semen stain was circled with a yellow crayon. He decided that he was going to send the coat to Dr. Colin Dark, and over the course of 3 years they analysed the material and they were able to find enough fragments of DNA to successfully create a YSTR profile from the semen stain. This would help police identify Muriel's murderer by taking and testing swabs from the perpetrator's sons, grandsons or even great-grandsons. Although the profile was loaded into the UK's national DNA database, it failed to come up with any match, but this DNA did clear Hubert of any involvement in the murder. In 2009, the Welsh police began reinvestigating any links that could be made between Muriel's murder and there was a murder of an 11-year-old girl who was called Sheila Martin, who was raped and strangled just 250 miles away in Sunhill Wood, Forkham Green, Kent, on the 7th of July 1946, which was 10 days after Muriel's murder. Both girls were murdered in woods within half a mile of their homes. South Wales Police detectives requested the original case file from Kent Police to determine if there was connection. For more than a decade, Welsh true crime author Neil Milkins has theorised that notorious child murderer Harold Jones was responsible for the murders of both Sheila Martin and Muriel Drinkwater. However, in 2019, South Wales Police stated that forensic tests on the DNA categorically confirmed that Harold Jones was not responsible for the murder of Muriel Drinkwater. In 2010, the Lord Chancellor's Advisory Council on National Records and Archives closed off the case to the public. It was stated that the public can no longer access the Drinkwater files by the Freedom of Information Act. The reason given for sealing the files was because they thought it could help the police catch the perpetrator. In 2020, the BBC One documentary Darkland, Hunting the Killers, suggested that Ronnie Harries could have been the murderer. Ronnie was hanged in 1954 for the double murder of John and Phoebe Harries. There is evidence that Harries was employed by Muriel Drinkwater's father, John, at the time of her death. DNA was taken from the relatives of Ronnie Harries, but the results have not yet been made public. South Wales Police come out to say that all historic murder cases, often referred to in the media as cold cases, are allocated to a specialist crime review unit and they remain under active consideration and will be subject to re-investigation as and when new information is received or when there are advances in forensic technology. So to this day, the murder of Muriel Drinkwater, the Little Red Riding Hood murder, remains unsolved. I do suspect with this case, is it someone that knew her and knew her routine and knew whereabouts they could drag her in the woods to not be seen? Or was this just an opportunist who just took his opportunity? He noticed her when he was sort of walking by and took the opportunity. It's a very interesting one, and you know, it might come to light that Harries was responsible for it, but they clearly haven't, you know, released the information yet, the police. I'm going to keep my eye on this one and sort of see what happens, and hopefully this will get solved. I would love to know your thoughts and feelings on this case. Let me know that down below and I shall see